Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world, and welcome to this Techstrong Learning Experience brought to you by Red Hat. My name is Cody, and I'm the host of Techstrong Learning, and we have an exciting presentation ahead. Before we begin, I do have just a couple of housekeeping notes to cover. Today's session is being recorded, so if you miss any of our discussion, perhaps you'd like to rewatch or maybe share with a friend. The on-demand recording will be made available shortly after we conclude our live session today. If you want to engage with us, you can do so on the right side of the screen. You'll notice there's a chat tab, so go ahead and start warming that up now by letting us know from where you are joining us. If you have any questions, I'd like you to direct those to the Q&A tab. This will be a little bit of a shorter session today, so if we are unable to get to your question, we will make sure to forward those along and get them answered after our webinar concludes. And if you stick around for the duration of our program, you will hear at the end, we're giving away 4 $25 Amazon gift cards. So be sure to stick around to see if you're a winner. The topic of our program today is Cloud Native Developer Tools. What's on the horizon? And I'm joined by Parag Dev, Senior Manager of Product Management and Developer Tooling at Red Hat. So Parag, thank you for joining me. I'd like to go ahead and invite you to the stage.
Hi, my name is Parag Dev. I'm a Senior Manager of Product Management at Red Hat in Developer Tools. And in today's session, we are going to talk about our tools for application developers and share with you what's on the horizon. I'm also leading our hosted developer experiences for building and deploying applications across multiple cloud platforms. I'll cover that as we get into the details of the content. Standard disclaimer, as you can imagine, our horizon could change at any point in time. Some of our roadmaps will change, so there's no legal obligation for us to be, to bind to the slides that we share with you today. So many of us are familiar with the developer flow, especially the inner loop and the outer loop. The inner loop is where you start working in your local environment. You have an idea and you want to take it forward. So we start with creating the developer environment, start writing code, building the code so you can test it, and debugging in your local environment as it goes. And at some point, you would then be satisfied and you run your push into your central source code repository. And when that happens, the aspect of the outer loop takes over, which covers things like reviewing, building artifacts, doing end-to-end testing, checking for security, and then at some point, you would deploy it into your desired environments, your desired runtime environments. At Red Hat Developer Tools, along with the inner loop and the outer loop, we also focus on areas of trialing and onboarding and helping you get into the production environments of your choice. So when it comes to trial and onboarding, we help cover the things where you can get access to the tooling and the environments so that you could do these activities of inner loop and outer loop in a fast, friction-free manner. When it comes to production environments, you want to make sure that we support the environments which are of your choice across the open hybrid cloud landscape so that you could achieve the results of your application as soon as possible. If we double click on this, you get there are tools on the trial and onboarding side, which are either hosted or available for you in your local environment. There are tools which are for coding and building your artifacts, cloud native applications. Some are even for generic application development, and you can access these tools either in the IDE of your choice, or we even have our own central IDE they can run on top of OpenShift. So we'll cover that in detail. And then for the outer loop, there are various offerings where it comes into tooling that you could use for running your pipelines, for automation, for deployment to the environments. Also tooling that plugs into your existing systems if you have for automation frameworks like other CI/CD tools, and end-to-end user experiences that you can run on top of OpenShift. So let's get into the trial and onboarding. So one of the things I mentioned earlier, as you saw on the slide, was something called the Developer Sandbox for OpenShift. So the challenge that it tries to solve is that it takes a high amount of effort and cost if you want to try out Kubernetes and all the different tools and services that are related to creating and deploying containerized applications. With Developer Sandbox is a hosted offering that is available on Red Hat. The link, as you can see, is below the screenshot, and it offers a free trial of OpenShift. It comes pre-configured with a lot of the developer tools and services, from machine learning Jupyter notebooks to standard full stack applications, a rich catalog. It basically has a great visual interface, which is based upon the OpenShift Developer Console, that gives you rich capabilities with this whole bundled developer experience. So you can create, you can deploy, run, and monitor your applications on there. So the benefit for you is you can easily prototype and experiment. It gives you high agility. It's low cost because it's free. You get free access to hosted OpenShift and all these tools on it. And there is zero installation required. You can access Developer Sandbox directly from a web browser. So the link is right there. I would encourage anyone to try it out and get the full end-to-end experience of building and deploying and monitoring applications on top of OpenShift, just bringing in your source code or taking advantage of our samples that are bundled with experience. If you prefer something more local, we have an offering called OpenShift Local. The link is at the bottom as well. Now here you're looking at trying out the developer experience of Kubernetes, but in your local environment, so not hosted. So in this case, what you have is an all-in bundle of a single node OpenShift instance. You can run it on a laptop, you can run it on a machine, and this way you can get the advantage of the full end-to-end experience, but it is on your on your local environment. It's pretty simple to install. It works pretty much on all the different operating systems that you are used to as a developer, and this way it's a low effort of setting up a full-blown Kubernetes environment with the control plane and worker nodes and all that. You just get everything bundled into one that can run on a single machine. And because it is in your local environment, it's highly secure. So you could do things like that you would typically do not only as a developer, but even to pick up some administration knowledge about how to set up accounts or how to set up other aspects of Kubernetes administration like config maps or secrets or routes, things like that. You could try it out within your local environment and connect it into your own local services and all. Now, just bear in mind, it's running locally on a machine, so it is dependent upon the amount of resources that you could give to it from your local machine on which you're running it. So if you're planning on running a lot of developer tooling on top of it, it will require resources, and this is where the hosted OpenShift, the Developer Sandbox, may be a better fit for all the different tools that come loaded on it. So in the trial and onboarding, one of the things that we are working on next is how do we help developers and application teams onboard into your landscape and do your tool set, right from your tools to your knowledge, your documentations, your guidelines. What's an end-to-end experience we can provide so that developer teams can get onboarded very quickly into the environment and start contributing to your projects. So we're looking into, and if you're familiar with it, there's an open source solution called Backstage. So we're looking into leveraging Backstage, working with the community, and see how we can offer an internal developer platform for you. We're still working through the details to see how we would like to have it available for you. But we're very excited about this because it's a very vibrant community. The value that it offers for you is tremendous because it can basically reduce the amount of time it takes for application teams to get familiar with the tools and the technologies and the different guidelines and everything you may have. Has a rich ecosystem of plugins, so you could plug into your existing tool sets directly from the internal developer platform, and get going and contributing into your projects as soon as possible. So these are the top 3 offerings that we are focused on from a trial and onboarding perspective. So now let's talk about the inner loop. So as I mentioned, like inner loop is around, you have an idea and now you want to start coding, you want to set up a developer environment. So we are pretty familiar. Like typically what ends up happening is we set up the development environment on our own local machines, on our laptops. We are, we have to get the whole end-to-end flow set up of the runtimes and the objects, the programming language stacks and everything, and then you can start get coding. One of the challenges that we have seen is it's really slow. It takes time. In some cases, it could take weeks before the development environment is able to be set up. And especially in our remote working conditions, it's harder because there's nobody right next to you that you can just go talk to and try to replicate the setup onto your laptop. And it's pretty inconsistent because what works on one machine may not work very well on the other machine because of some changes that you make that are then not propagated to everybody's machines, right? And obviously it's resource intensive because when you run tests and everything, you're kind of dependent upon the resources you have in your development, the hardware upon which your development environment is created. So OpenShift Dev Spaces is a way for us to provide a development environment which is as simple as opening up a browser. It's replicable, it's reproducible, it is declared via Git, so you could have the entire development environment defined in a file which can be stored in Git, and then it can just be loaded on top of an OpenShift server. And this way you have a centralized development environment where everything runs and has even the visual aspect of an IDE in there. And now folks can just click on a button and just get going right away. You don't have to worry about what runtimes and what stacks and what are all the different objects that are required before you can even get into the the source code repository. It's all set up at the click of a button. So as you can imagine, the biggest benefit is speed, right? You can get going immediately. It takes seconds versus taking weeks and months. The other part of it is it's very consistent because it's central. So you have a declared development environment. There is no drift. You stick with that. And this way, everybody gets the same copy of the declared environment that you work with. So it's very consistent. And it is secure because everything runs on a central environment just on top of OpenShift. So even your Git clones are going to be on that in that environment on OpenShift and not on your laptop. And because it is using resources based upon the server, the server class hardware upon which OpenShift worker nodes are installed, you can imagine that some of the activities like end-to-end testing, even builds, would probably run faster on those environments. And so your time waiting for builds to finish and all that will actually be reduced because you would be leveraging the scale of Kubernetes and the kind of hardware that comes by running OpenShift on top of it. So it's a great benefit for developers and for central application teams to kind of keep things consistent and put them on a central environment. So please give it a spin. This is one of the tools that is already pre-configured and loaded in the developer sandbox. If you want to take a look at it, just go the link at the bottom and you can just start using it right away without even installing the operator in your environment. The OpenShift Dev Spaces supports a lot of the things like IDEs like Eclipse Che right now. We are working on VS Code as a default one as well, and IntelliJ. So you'll get a chance to bring have a development IDE experience that you're very familiar with, and it comes with a lot of the different integrations along the way around Git and air gap support as well. If you already have an IDE of your choice in your local environment, then we have a rich ecosystem of extensions. And these extensions enable you to get faster with a specific programming language or a specific kind of jobs that you're trying to do. One of them is our IDE extension for Quarkus. Now we know it's a little complex of trying to build for Java developers who are building existing applications to create a containerized application for Kubernetes using Quarkus. There are some toolings that would be required to make it easy. That's what we have done with our IDE extension. Want to help you develop these applications, give you complete guidance in terms of code completion and everything, and eliminate the need to run a GRE to basically use the Quarkus tools in your IDE. So you can very quickly not only create these Quarkus applications, you can just deploy them directly to a existing OpenShift environment from your IDE. So as you can imagine, one of the biggest benefits is you're fast. Your productivity goes up. Developers can now work with Quarkus apps in a very seamless, easy way directly from the IDE of their choice. So the links there will show you the plugins that we have for VS Code and for the JetBrains ecosystem. If you are looking into creating containers locally and you have Docker Desktop, which is one of the most popular tools out there for creating containers for just to try test them out locally and push them into an image repository of your choice, we have a way for you to make it easy to deploy these images from your local Docker Desktop environment to an OpenShift environment, which could be running somewhere. Could be running locally on your laptop if it's OpenShift Local, or a remote environment, right? Like an OpenShift environment you already have access to, or even the developer sandbox for that matter. So this way you have an integrated way of using Docker Desktop to create these images, to test out the images within the Docker environment on your local machine, and then pushing it into OpenShift and see how it runs when it's in OpenShift, and then have it connected to all your various services and everything directly in OpenShift, right? So you can take advantage of the rich developer experience of OpenShift for the same image that you created here on your local desktop. So this will make it very easy for you because it's seamless. So you don't have to worry about jumping across various tools. It happens from one place. So check it out. It's actually, it's really popular, and customers are really gravitating towards it because it makes it easier for developers to go, and take advantage of the work in the inner loop, but have it run and deployed into an OpenShift environment to see how it looks like. If you prefer the CLI and not the IDE, we have a CLI tool called Odeo. And what it is about basically testing your code as containers onto Kubernetes from a CLI. So, if you're familiar, you could pick up the kubectl CLI and all its, rich options and parameters, or even the OpenShift, the OC CLI. Odeo tries to simplify that. It's basically a way for you to converse with it and use its commands and options in a developer friendly way versus a full blown way of Kubernetes. And so, as you can imagine, behind the scenes, it's running multiple tasks for you, even though you're only interacting with very simple intents. So you declare your intents into ODO, and ODO behind the scenes executes the tasks that are needed to perform your intents. So very simple set of commands and that abstracts away the whole Kubernetes context and gives you a rich capability of building and pushing the images and deploying them into OpenShift or any Kubernetes environment from your code. So it also has a capability which is pretty interesting, is about automatic updates and deployments based upon code changes. So if you're working in your local Git repos and you're making changes, ODO can watch for it and deploy them when build the new images and deploy it on OpenShift, onto the environment. So this way you don't have to do it manually; it can happen automatically for you. As you can imagine, this makes your life a lot easier. You don't need to dive into all the complex Kubernetes configurations. And now, while you're coding and you're making changes, before you even push your changes into Git, you'll be able to test them out as containers, if that's one of the tasks you would like to do. And as we are coding, as we all know, that we use a lot of open source, dependencies. In fact, almost 80% of the code that is used by an application actually comes from the open source dependencies that we have. But not all open source libraries are created equal. There is always going to be some vulnerabilities, some issues. So it's harder if you're running the checks later on to create a secure application right from get-go when you're creating it. So which means that you have to go back and make changes, and you just lose a lot of productivity because you're going to be back and forth. Sometimes it takes almost 15 to 20% of your time just to when the issue arises to kind of find the issue and fix it. Right? It could take quite a bit of a time to do all those things. So with the dependency analytics tool, it's basically a simple hosted service from Red Hat that has plugins. Whether you put them into an IDE or even into your favorite CI/CD product, where you can analyze and remedy vulnerabilities directly from your IDE. So you can analyze your vulnerabilities into manifest files like pom.xml, package.json, requirements.txt, or go.mode files. The idea is that you see your vulnerabilities from all the open source packages you've imported, and you can access other details, not just the vulnerabilities, but what kind of maturity is in the exploitation of this vulnerability. Can I even get automated PR requests for me? Now, this capability is powered by Snyk, which is one of the leading commercial vendors out there for open source vulnerabilities. So not only the database, but also the capabilities like raising automated PRs and everything. So check it out. This will basically give you a pretty easy way of securing your application code before you even run your builds. So this way, your open source dependencies can be, analyzed and remedied before the code even makes its way into running an expensive build process and pushing it out there, only to find out there are vulnerabilities in the dependencies in the first place. And this makes it easy for you to do it directly from an IDE and CI/CD, so you don't have to go around into different tools to remedy this. I mean, in the end, you are editing your manifest file in your IDE. What better place to tell you about the vulnerabilities in your manifest file than your IDE? So please, take a look at it. It's pretty popular, and as I said, it's a hosted service for free by Red Hat that you could plug into from IDEs to take care of the vulnerabilities in your dependencies. So what's coming next on the horizon to help you with the inner loop? So one of the tools that we're working on is if you're familiar with Podman, we are kind of packaging Podman into a desktop-like experience. So this way, you're able to run it anywhere on your favorite developer platforms, and it'll automatically get updated. It'll have a rich interface like a desktop, so you'll be able to go through the steps of building, running them as pods, and posting the images into your repository of choice. And you can basically run pods, and you don't need to have Kubernetes. It just runs directly within Podman. And it'll provide configurations for internal environments like VP and all that you can access from your laptop, but have it connecting back into your environment, into your company's environment. And also, the same thing like Docker Desktop extension, you'll be able to then take these images that you're creating using Podman Desktop and run them onto any OpenShift, local or remote. So we're pretty excited about it. As you know, the Podman has certain advantages. It's light. It allows rootless builds, and so this giving you the power of Podman in a desktop-like experience is something that we are working on. And so check it out. It's available right now. We just started out, but it's something that we are going to be focusing on pretty well to kind of give you a great inner loop experience for containerized applications. So now let's talk about the outer loop. So we got the code, we're about to push it into Git. So now we need to start thinking about things like deploying it, testing it. So what do we have in the Red Hat portfolio that can help you there? One of the key ones is called an OpenShift connector. So from your IDE, once you install this extension, you would then be able to deploy directly into an OpenShift from your code. So while you're pushing into Git, you get connected into your Git branch, you connect it into even your local branch, and now you'll be able to have it running on any OpenShift of your choice. The advantage here is you can now see it running as a container, and you can debug it. You can share the route when it's running on OpenShift with the rest of your teams, even your stakeholders. And so people can then see what you've done and it's running over there. And then any feedback that you get, bring it back into your code, push the new changes, and you'll get it running again into that OpenShift environment. So you have a feedback loop that's going all the time. We want to make it really simple. So we've pretty much just done a single click experience to go from apps, running from your IDE directly into OpenShift. We also give you, the ability to, connect or even procure OpenShift, some of the trials like OpenShift Local or Developer Sandbox directly from the IDE. So you don't have to go to a separate place to do that. You can just do it all from the connector. So one stop place for your into an OpenShift workflow to go from code to running it in the OpenShift environment of your choice. And because it is integrated into hosted and local OpenShift, you can pretty much do things really quickly and iterate over your code as you go forward. If you are in OpenShift, right? So now you're in the outer loop, so you'll have an OpenShift environment where you want to deploy it. We have the rich end-to-end experience within OpenShift called the OpenShift Developer Console. It's a perspective in the OpenShift console. So when you log into OpenShift, the developer perspective is created for developers to fulfill all the developer-focused activities within Kubernetes. The Kubernetes default interface that comes, it's great, but it feels a little disjointed, and it is, it requires a lot of work to kind of get all your developer services and tools and to kind of see how you're going to go simple from code to something running on that cluster, right? So with the OpenShift Dev Console, it's not only very intuitive, it's pre-configured with a lot of the tools and services which are exposed to developers, and all in a single console. It has very rich capabilities, extremely intuitive user interfaces that have actually won quite a few prizes in the industry. And you can then do the end-to-end thing. You can go in here, you can try out samples, you can bring in your Git, you can deploy it directly onto the cluster you're in, you can run it, you can see, you can make some changes to it, you can monitor it, so you can, get access to a lot of the different stats around, resource consumption and everything, all within the same cluster where you are by simply logging into it and getting access to the developer console. This rich and intuitive graphical interface basically gives you a comprehensive developer experience, and that makes it your job a lot easier and a lot faster to go from idea to just try to running applications directly onto OpenShift. And with this, there's a rich catalog that you get of services, toolings that you can run. You can connect into externally hosted services. So as you add more capabilities in your environment, the developer console kind of evolves along with it, and it opens up the different capabilities that have been added onto that cluster, so developers can now take advantage of it without having to leave that cluster, including if you have dev spaces, for example, installed on OpenShift, there's very easy way directly from the OpenShift Dev Console to edit the code of the application you're looking at that you created via a Git repo. So it's very rich. Check it out. All you need is access to OpenShift. And the Developer Sandbox, as I said, is based upon the Dev Console. So if you want to give it a spin, sign up for the Developer Sandbox, and it's free, and instantly you'll be able to check out the capabilities of the Dev Console. So once you're in the outer loop, automation is the key, right? We all know that with automation, you get speed, you get predictability, and CI/CD is no longer a mystery. It's something that is pretty much very well adopted by all of us in our companies. But one of the key challenges around cloud native development is that cloud native is modularized and it takes advantage of scale. However, the traditional CI/CD pipelines have been found to be very intensive on resources, and also it takes a lot of time to set it up because many of them are like a central model. It's just it's not Kubernetes native, and so as a result, what ends up happening is either take a lot of resources or a lot of time to set up and manage these. OpenShift Pipelines is based upon a very popular open source project called Techton. And what OpenShift Pipelines gives you is, number one, is it's a Kubernetes native CI/CD system. It uses things as needed. It scales as Kubernetes allows it to scale, right, with the architectures of containers. It gives you the isolated execution. So this way, one of the top benefits of Kubernetes, right, you could have two different applications running and not taint each other. Imagine the same exact thing for your pipelines. You could do that with OpenShift Pipelines. They're isolated. The pipeline runs for one application versus the other, do not taint each other, and they can run in their own isolated environment, so that things like secrets and all that don't have to be shared across two different kinds of pipelines. Has a great task library. It's called the Techton Hub. You can we constantly contribute, partners contribute to it, so you have a lot of templates that are available for you to kind of stitch your pipelines very quickly. And it comes with a visual interface, which is available to you in the OpenShift console and also on IDEs. So this way you can author and manage and troubleshoot your pipelines in a visual way rather than scanning through text-based log files. So this gives you an amazing scalability, right? The resource consumption only happens when this pipeline runs. There's no central server to run or maintain. It's when pipelines run, they use resources. When they're not running, it's nothing. Gives you real security because it's running isolated, right? So the runs are isolated from each other. So that gives you high security that you don't have to worry about, things bleeding from one to the other. And our whole declarative pipeline as code in Git makes it so much easier for you to use Git to basically create your pipeline definitions that are then running on OpenShift. So you don't have to go construct them into OpenShift. You actually can just use Git for it. And this way, it's declared, it's easy to manage. You can just share that same exact Git-based pipeline definition across teams, and you now get the benefit of a centralized way of auditing and managing your pipelines. So check it out. It's great. All it requires is an operator to install on OpenShift. Talking about GitOps, it's a principle that is really catching on, and it's become very popular in the industry. What's driving it is the lack of audit and control when it comes to managing the Kubernetes configuration, the application configurations that run on top of Kubernetes. How do you keep track of all these things and make sure that it is doing what you want it to do versus what could happen when someone goes directly into Kubernetes and just starts making changes into it, not only to Kubernetes itself, but even to the applications themselves, right? So that lack of audit and control, the lack of ability to answer the question, why is this application doing this right now? Why was it set up to do this? And who did it? That was one of the key drivers of the GitOps principle, right? So the top capabilities of OpenShift GitOps, which is powered by Argo CD, an extremely popular open source project for the GitOps methodology for applications and for infrastructure, is that it gives you a declarative way of keeping application and cluster configurations in Git. And once that gives you the whole power of Git, from versioning, from audit, you get a chance from RBAC to approval controls. You can do all of those things because Git is very rich with that. With OpenShift GitOps, you basically take advantage of that and then apply it to your application and your Kubernetes configurations. One amazing thing, automated drift remediation if you want it. You declared it to do one thing, someone went and made a change, just restore it back to what was declared. So this way, with the drift detection and automated remediation, you have that capability. It's very easy to set it up. There are bootstrapping tools that we provide. So you can set up the entire Git structure, the repository, the entire workflows can be taken care of with our bootstrapping tools. And then as you do this, as we said, it's about audit, right? So we have to give you some insights into how the applications are working, or what's drifting, when was it done, like when was the last push made into Git. We bring that information to you directly into the OpenShift console, as the screenshot shows you. So the benefits are you get a great compliance with Git-based versioning, RBAC, and all those. Extremely reliable, right? Because you're declaring something, and with automated drift detection and remediation, you could be sure that what you've declared is what is going to happen in your runtime environment. And this just makes it very easy for you because it has bootstrapping tools, it has controlling and manage capabilities. So this way, you don't have to learn the complexity of doing this on your own, and creating a GitOps flow by yourself. It just comes ready for you. All you need is an operator running on top of OpenShift. So check it out. It's one of the top capabilities when it comes to managing Git across the Kubernetes world. One of the things we also have is something called a web terminal, which allows you to kind of take a look into what's happening on that cluster for your applications directly from a CLI. So right now, if you want to do this, you have to go set up all the CLIs on your private machine. You have to have the connectivity, the secrets, tokens, all that, so you can connect into it. But this way, you just go into Kubernetes, you just go into OpenShift, and just launch the web terminal. And you get preloaded all of these CLIs. You get a history of a previously run commands, and you just start using the toolings. As the screenshot shows, it's pretty rich. You have your pipelines CLIs in there. You obviously have OpenShift OC. You also have the GitOps one. So there are a lot of commands that are available for you to start using them right away. This way, all your common CLIs can now be launched in a terminal session within the OpenShift console. So when it comes to outer loop, what's next on our horizon? And we are working, as I said, one of the things I mentioned earlier was like a managed developer experience that I'm leading. So we are right now, it's called App Studio. The challenge that we found is that it's very complex and time consuming if you want to develop and deliver enterprise grade cloud native applications with Kubernetes across all the cloud platforms. Things that you have to repeat into each environment, things that you have to set up specifically for each cloud platform, things you have to do to your Kubernetes OpenShift environments for each particular cloud and for your applications as they come on, right? So all the different configurations you have to come up with. A lot of the time is spent not in coding the application and making the applications better, but in actually deploying and managing these configurations of deployments that are required when the application lands on these things, right? It's great if you are a cloud native expert, but if you're not, it takes a lot of time to do this and it never ends, right? This complexity is not something that you can solve within X number of days. It's just an ongoing thing. So some things get easier, some things get stay harder, and new things come in which will make it harder as well, right? So what we are targeting is that deliver an abstracted end-to-end managed developer experience, so you can create, deliver, and manage these Kubernetes-driven applications, and don't even require a OpenShift or a Kubernetes environment to get started. We'll just bundle one for you. So in order for your application to go from code to deployment, you don't have to have a cluster. It just comes with something. So this way you can just get going on this journey without having to first get the entire cluster set up for your applications. And it evolves as your application grows. As you bring in different applications, we want to make it easy to integrate with leading cloud services, bring in enterprise grade developer security capabilities around vulnerability management, around secure containers and things like that, and give you a way of implementing your full software development lifecycle. Let's face it, apps just don't get deployed into one environment. Then you have to carry it forward into all the other environments of your choice, whether it is going from dev to test to user acceptance to pre-prod to prod. Like, it depends upon your company and depends upon your setup that you have. But how do you do all of this from a single place? It gives you a unified experience of going from end to end with security choices and with advanced capabilities where you require it. This will make you really fast, give you high agility because it's bundled, so you can just start experimenting right away without having to set up any kind of a Kubernetes or an OpenShift environment. The abstracted experience will just make it easier, remove all the complexity of the underlying technology and the underlying aspects and the configurations of Kubernetes. It's just very simple, rich user interface, simple CLI. You can just start using it. And this way you kind of reduce all of these out of the way and just help you focus on your code and your applications. And because it'll have security, it's centralized, as you can imagine, it gets more, it gets better when it comes to implementing secure tasks around it and keeping things centralized versus using, spreading the whole local sprawl of everything that requires in order to go from code to a production grade and a production environment of applications. It's currently, and it's coming next. So, there's a page link in here. Please go ahead. You can sign up for it for early access, and we'll be, more than happy to get in touch as soon as we are ready for that. So in summary, at Red Hat, we are focused on the end-to-end secure software delivery lifecycle. That has been our mantra in the developer tools. And we want to help you go from code debug all the way into deploying and managing it. But we understand that there are different levels, right? You may, just have simple opinionated. Just keep it simple, abstract. I just want to code. 2, something that is like, hey, I'm an expert. I would love to get into the details of each technology, see its power, and see what I could do for it for my specific requirements. Both choices are available for you, right? You can do it either way you like. And then security is an underlying aspect that is brought into your DevOps and and the entire development lifecycle versus something that is only done at a gate toward before the release, right? That used to be the old-fashioned way. The new way is, how do we bring in this? So we offered various tools, we work with various integrations so you can adopt security at all aspects. like I mentioned earlier about the dependency analytics, right? Even when you're just importing an open source dependency, the application is not even gone past. It's just stack of, what to use and this first hello world code line. You could start analyzing right there, all the way to when it starts running as a container and on the runtime environment that is running on. You can secure that as well, right? So this whole end-to-end flow is what we support. We have a rich set of resources. The Sandbox, as I said, it's free, it's hosted. Just go take a look at it. It has pre-configured tools and services on it. App Studio, please sign up for it. And then if you go to developersredhat.com, the developersredhat.com comes with a free subscription, right? And that subscription gives you access to amazing content. You can download products. You get access to a lot of technical blog posts. You get access to ebooks and more. It's rich, and the amount of assets you get access to as you grow, and a rich community. You can take advantage of this for free. All you got to do is just go sign up for it. So thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to present our portfolio and what's next for cloud native development. I really appreciate this opportunity. Thank you very much, and have a great day.
All right, Parag, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate you being here and providing all of these insights. So thank you again for joining us. I would like to remind everyone that this session was recorded. So should you want to rewatch or gain access to these slides in the meantime before we can get those emailed back out to you, you can view this on the DevOps website at devops.com/webinars, or you should also be receiving the recording via email. The 4 winners of our $25 Amazon gift card drawing are Lynn C., Pietro A., Adrian M., and Yannick B. So to our 4 winners, congratulations. Keep an eye on your inbox to claim your gift card. If you don't happen to see that email in about the next 48 hours, check your spam folder just in case it gets filtered out. I'd like to thank Red Hat for sponsoring our program today. And to our audience, thank you so much for joining us for this Techstrong learning experience today. We really appreciate you joining us, and we want to hear your feedback. So as soon as we close out, there will be a survey that pops up. Let us know your thoughts on today's program or perhaps suggestions for a future program. Regardless, we do hope to see everyone at a future Techstrong learning experience. Have a great rest of your day, and Parag, thank you once again.